So I'd like to welcome everyone to today's call as part of the sustainability session at this year's Delta training. The focus of this branch of the training today is on circular economy. Just to let you know, before we begin, all the calls are recorded, so you'll be able to view recordings of them on the landing page following the session. Which means obviously you won't be missing out on anything between the two sessions. If you have any questions for our speakers today, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen instead of the chat, please. And our experts will answer the questions in due course. Finally, we have a poll which will be launched at the very end of the call just for feedback, so please take 20 seconds to fill that out. So with that said, I can now hand over to Stephen, who's going to kick the session off. With an update from SAP Responsible Design and Production. Stephen, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today, and really for what is our first proper outing, I guess, of SAP Responsible Design and Production. This is a solution that we've been innovating with our customers over the last, well, 2 to 3 years, really, in total, although more seriously over the last 6 months. And we will be bringing this into the market in November, and today wanted to explain the solution, but also the context of where this solution fits in terms of our wider sustainability management program and our ambition to deliver a circular economy in a world of zero waste. So if we go to our first slide. Our strategy for circular economy, first off, really begins with the principle of how we help businesses and society in general build towards regenerative business in a circular economy. This isn't just our mission as SAP, but this is the mission of many of our partners, many of our leading customers, and really framed by the brilliant work of our partners at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. This is a strategy which is really led, since we're a commercial organization, led by the ambitions and the activities of our largest customers, in fact, our entire customer base, and are really designed to tackle, the critical objectives, the critical commitments that our customers are making on their own journeys towards, a world of zero waste and an ultimately regenerative future. As we go on this journey, we're forming a number of critical partnerships. We're working closely with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and innovating with those communities the sorts of solutions that are going to be necessary in the years ahead. Also with colleagues at the World Economic Forum, where we're looking at a range of different material types, focusing on 3 key pillars of innovation. So we're focusing on solutions that help eliminate waste materials. We're focusing on solutions that help circulate and keep materials and products in use for as long as possible. And we're looking at solutions, innovating solutions which help regenerate natural systems and innovate the new business models that ultimately lead to a regenerative economy. And we're being quite selective in how we approach this. We're focusing on 6 key materials, the materials that we see as most problematic and the ones that have got the biggest effort around in the sort of the global ecosystem in order to be able to tackle. So we're focusing on plastics, textiles, batteries, food, building materials, and electronic components, and really sort of flowing, roughly speaking, in that order, although naturally that is evolving and dynamic and changing all the time. As we scale what we are doing, clearly everything that we do and develop in terms of solutions here is very much integrated into our intelligent enterprise strategy. In terms of the front-end innovations, how we support those new business models, harnessing industry cloud, and also the brilliant activities within our and startups within our SAP IO ecosystem, and also via yourselves, our global partner network. If you go to the next slide. If we just sort of drill into those 3 pillars, just to introduce really some of the key solution areas that we're working on here. This activity is really guided by 3 principles of business need. Firstly, the clear and compelling need for regulatory compliance. Extended producer responsibility regulations are being formed globally at the moment and presenting a major challenge for our customers to be able to consume those, respond to those, and stay ahead of that regulatory scenario. Also, the introduction of plastic taxes, voluntary agreements, the sorts of commitments that are being made via the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, but also through the variety of plastic pacts, for example, around the world. And also the need to do good business, the clear, compelling need to be able to support customers who have a demand for sustainable products, but also to avoid risk and avoid the potential negative impacts of being found liable for polluting our planet. And so if we take those three topics I mentioned, eliminate, circulate, regenerate, we're focusing on really three flagship product areas or solution areas in order to be able to address those topics. So for eliminate, we're primarily focusing on a solution called SAP Responsible Design and Production, which is our focus for today. This focuses very much on the business process steps of, well, you guessed it, design and production, and how we help design for circularity and how we optimize resource use. Throughout the wider program, we're also focusing on solutions that help circulate. And here we have an umbrella of exciting solutions under responsible sourcing and marketplaces, where we have technologies like Logistics Business Network, Rural Sourcing Management, Ariba, to name a few. And then in terms of regenerate, this is really about how we form those new business model innovations in order to be able to do things like move to product as a service models. And these are innovations which are happening from continuously through our industry cloud portfolio. And this is what we'll see really ramping up going into 2022. So that's just an introduction to the overall big picture. But if we kind of now drill and double click onto the eliminate pillar and go to the next slide. Sorry, before I get there, this is just to kind of give you a sense of, in terms of those three pillars, where we're going. So in 2020, this is really kind of setting out the foundations for our program. We announced our vision for a clean ocean at Davos, and then we, this year, have been sort of building the first stage of our solution journey. So focusing on the eliminate pillar, launching SAP Responsible Design and Production. Going into 2022, we'll build on this and we'll build our focus into the circulate pillar and building into the responsible sourcing and marketplace solutions. And then going into 2023, it's really about unlocking that value and helping businesses pivot to those regenerative business models. If we go to the next slide. So looking now at the eliminate pillar, as I said, we're looking at the kind of context for this. You know, first and foremost, we're looking at the topic of plastics and packaging. We're looking at the fact that 91% of consumers are concerned about plastic waste, 73% are motivated to purchase eco-friendly packaging, for example, but potentially of equal significance, perhaps greater significance, governments, regulators are responding. We're seeing the formulation of a treaty for plastics at the moment, with more than 170 nations actively engaged in that initiative. We're seeing the pipeline of 400 or so extended producer responsibility schemes. We're also seeing the creation of plastic taxes and new tax regimes coming into place in Europe going into 2022. In terms of EPR schemes, what we're seeing is really a sharpening and a deepening of the focus around the principle of polluter pays. We're moving away from a system of a nominal charge to support the waste system on everything that's sold. And we're now seeing a sort of fine-tuning of regulatory incentives in order to disincentivize certain materials from use and to incentivize more sustainable materials, but also to help fund the new innovation and infrastructure which is going to be necessary. Likewise, if you look at plastic taxes, looking at a slightly different part of the circle, but focusing more on ensuring that recycled content is brought into use. And indeed furthering the incentives and the infrastructure in order to be able to support that. And thirdly, the topic of voluntary agreements. When we recently did a survey with our customers, this came out very much on top as one of the key concerns for CEOs in many of our customer organizations. The commitments they've made publicly in the press are things that they feel very responsible for and very accountable to. And the kind of commitments they have through the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, through RAP, through WWF, and many others are really framing what are, potentially a rich set of corporate commitments that also need to be executed against. So if you go to the next slide. This just gives a bit of color really in terms of that picture we're talking about in terms of extended producer responsibility. This is traditionally, or maybe historically, seen as a more of a kind of European concern, but actually over the last several years, this has become rapidly a much more global topic. We're now seeing EPR schemes spinning up in North America. We're seeing the results of the various pacts that are in place in South America, resulting in schemes there. And we're seeing obviously a lot of activity in Asia as well, and South Africa and so on and so forth. And so this is no longer just this kind of European topic, but actually very much a global topic. And as such, it's creating a real challenge for our customers in terms of managing that global complexity. So if we go to the next slide. So I just introduced the topic of global complexity and the challenge there. And what this means is, how our customers are potentially having to invest in understanding, in maintaining a view, and being able to keep track of those 400 plus schemes, plus new plastic taxes, and being able to make sense of those. And this is a dynamic space. And these regulations are complex, and they need to be, turned into something that can be ultimately reported upon. And so this begins our sort of challenge, how then to be able to do scenario modeling, how to be able to then understand the impact of that in terms of, for example, the earnings of particular product lines based on particular material choices. We also have a data challenge. The data that is required, I should say, in order to deliver upon these regulations is very much distributed. It's distributed within the organization, it's distributed across the supply chain. Packaging data may only be provided from, directly from the packaging supplier, or perhaps from their supplier. And so how do we get hold of this rich set of data? Also, how do you organize that data in a way that is useful for analyzing material impact, rather than simply just describing the product within? Thirdly, it's around how we need to be able to support the right stakeholder insights. And there's an operational tier to this in terms of discharging the regulatory responsibility and the tax responsibility, but there's also a strategic context in terms of how do we have those collaborative engagements with strategic stakeholders within business, like the R&D team, packaging technologists, for example, and then how to have the right conversations in order to move towards more sustainable material choices. Furthermore, how to then communicate and engage with the third-party collaborators, such as the NGO community and others that are sort of helping to incentivize the creation of a circular economy overall. So this sort of frames, I guess, the challenge. And I guess to talk about the solution, I'll hand over to Uwe Kirsten, our Chief Product Officer.
Okay, thanks a lot, Stephen, for the introduction, and very warm welcome from myself to the entire audience as well. And what I would like to do now over the next 20-25 minutes is giving you some details about our new and upcoming solution, SAP Responsible Design and Production, but as well also give you a sneak preview through a demo of our current solution as we have it in beta testing by some of our co-innovation customers. So as you heard about all the different challenges that our customers are facing in the context of responsible design and making the entire portfolio of products and packaging more sustainable. This is something where SAP Responsible Design and Production starts supporting our customers. The solution is called SAP Responsible Design and Production. We slice it along our roadmap, as Stephen has already indicated, and are going to starting with focusing on the very operational challenges, which are really addressing enabling customers to maintain all the complex data and collect all data from the different source systems, be it ERP systems, be it PLM system from SAP, so product lifecycle management, where many customers maintain packaging details which are required in this context, as well as, of course, enabling taking into the consideration and into the equation data from suppliers, which may be provided not through system-to-system integration, but rather through staging areas for which simple tools like Excel are used. And of course, the solution is well integrated with our SAP standard business applications like S4HANA. So I will then on one hand side, there is the challenge on data. On the other hand side, the challenge our customers are facing is keeping pace with all the new and upcoming and continuously changing requirements, be it related to EPR declarations, be it to new and upcoming tax regulations, or the commitments made by our customers on a voluntary basis according to initiatives of NGOs like the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So on one hand side, complex multitude of data. On the other hand side, the variety of requirements regarding regulatory and compliance, transparency and reporting. So this is something where all our customers are looking for one solution that holds all data in one place, not only to serve reporting requirements, but and also to provide transparency on the status of my packaging material. And as Stephen said, we are initially starting with focus on packaging material, where of course plastic is one of the biggest concerns we all are facing. And this is something where the solution starts with and starts at. So who are we addressing? What are the business users within a company that will benefit from the solution? And this goes really pretty broad, from sustainability managers who are tasked to oversee how is the progress and status within the company with regard to our public commitments. So how far are we, for example, in eliminating the use of virgin plastic? So this is something which is, of course, driving not only the sustainability managers, but even today on C-level companies. Then, of course, it is also for the brand managers and packaging engineers, because, of course, we as consumers are also looking more closely how sustainable are the products, how sustainable is the packaging. And of course, that has an implication on my consumption behavior, buying behavior. And with this, of course, the brand managers, packaging engineers are interested to see what is the status with regard to usage of certain plastic materials, be it PET, which is also subject to recycling processes, but as well causes certain concerns with regard to sustainability. For the compliance and EPR managers, they are mostly interested in getting all the EPR reports, all the figures out to the receiving producer responsibility organizations with accurate data at any time. So any data being consistent, correct, and complete. So where any delivery to any of the customers is really captured and is really then captured with regard what is the packaging used for any specific delivery to customers. And of course, now with the introduction of plastic taxes, this gets an additional term, because now it's not only the producer responsibility organizations that charge producers according to the volume of packaging material brought into the markets. It is now also the tax authorities in countries that in addition charge producers according to the plastic material brought into the particular markets along with the products. And here we see Italy, Spain, and the United Kingdom in Europe being front runners and in defining those plastic tax regulations. And we will see more countries that will introduce plastic taxes as well, in addition to the EPR fees that are imposed by the producer responsibility organizations. And of course, when we look into a little bit more the IT space, at least today, it is a big challenge for customers to bring together all data from the logistics sides, from the deliveries, from the material that is used for packaging, as well and the details of packaging material that are relevant in this entire context. So a broad area of personas and challenges we are going to address with SAP Responsible Design and Production. Of course, we need, as I said already, slice this according a roadmap. So with our minimal viable product that is planned to be released in November this year, we will focus on certain operational processes, targeting EPR experts, packaging engineers, and sustainability managers in operational processes, while we will extend addressing and supporting further personas within the company who are involved and concerned with making the entire business more regenerative, more sustainable along our roadmap. So this is the concept, and ultimately with providing all the capabilities, we will of course then enable or allow customers to bring everything together in one solution, which is then integrated with S4HANA, of course, and PLM, where the system SAP PLM is used to manage packaging details, while we of course are also allowing the integration with ECC systems on a project base, if you will, using certain ABAP accelerators, ABAP plugins we are going to provide, but also then providing interfaces with data coming from supplier or non-integrated systems. So all of that is going to be set up in the end in order to really enable the entire management of EPR declarations, taxes, NGO reports, and not only the reporting, but on a constant, if you will, daily basis, provide the required transparency. So if a COO is asked to provide details on the usage of certain packaging and plastic material in a specific market, along with products, SAP Responsible Design and Production will give the answer. And with that, of course, costs will be calculated accurately in accordance to the EPR regulatory requirements, the plastic taxes. We will support customers on the road to deliver according to their commitments. And this is then ultimately also the basis for taking the data within RDP to communicate accordingly to consumers about sustainability and regenerativeness of packaging material. So a lot of concepts, but before we go into the demo and going into more details, let me quickly introduce our understanding of packaging material, of a term called packaging composition, as we have introduced it with SAP Responsible Design and Production in order to structure systematically packaging information, which will then be the basis for any kind of reporting requirement, as well as any kind of analytics and forward-looking activities to make packaging and more sustainable, regenerative. So when I will talk about packaging, I will use the term packaging composition, which is the collection of all packaging material that is required from packaging the product as such. So what we call primary packaging, which is the material that is having direct contact with the product. Then we have in this packaging concept, the secondary packaging, which is used for packing these stock keeping units. And ultimately, of course, what is also relevant is the tertiary packaging, which is then used to pack multiple stock keeping units for transport to customers. So this is the structure. This collection of packaging material is our way we structure the view onto packaging, and this is also kind of practice we would like to see. We would like to establish as kind of a best practice among all customers, since this will be then the best foundation to stay compliant and to be ready for any kind of EPR requirement and any kind of transparency on packaging. And of course, for each of those packaging materials, further details are required. And this is something that's then all captured in one place in SAP Responsible Design and Production, while of course the actual engineering of the packaging, so determining what is the exact plastic used for the inlay, etc., what is the carton material, all the detailed characteristics are defined by packaging engineers in, for example, SAP Product Lifecycle Management, recipe development, where all those details are held and then replicated into SAP Responsible Design and Production. So this structure and this packaging material then needs to be transformed into the very different requirements for the EPR declarations and sustainability reports. So in every country with each and every current and upcoming EPR declaration, we are facing and our customers are facing requirement to provide the data in very different format, structure, aggregation. In one country, you just have to report, is it glass, is it plastic, is it metal or aluminum, and that's it. In other countries, you need to specify, has this packaging material been produced in the specific country? Has it been imported? Yes, no. In other countries, you also need to split it according product groups. So it's a very complex set of requirements, and this is something what SAP Responsible Design and Production will take over in order to support customers in meeting all those requirements and make it more or less pretty effortless for our customers to meet those requirements based on a harmonized and unified set of information on packaging. So when we look at the user journey, which is covered by the solution, we have the starting point where the EPR declarations are defined and are published by the producer responsibility organizations. We have them, the CTO in France, we have the Recopol in Poland, we have the Duale System Deutschland in Germany, we have Valpak, we have Conai. So it's really a large number, as Stephen has alluded to already, plus what we will see in 2022 are the specific requirements for the plastic taxes. So these are published on a regular basis. They are updated on an annual basis or even more frequently. And we as SAP, we decided that we will take those requirements and where we consider them, which is in many cases to consider them legal requirements, so with requirements that each and every producer has to meet, then we as SAP, we will prepare, we will develop the corresponding logic that transfers all packaging data ultimately into the required format and structure as stipulated by the PROs. So our customers then simply need to decide into which markets am I selling my products, and then accordingly subscribe, activate the reporting logic in the application. I will show you this in the demo as well. And then say, okay, now I'm selling into country A, B, C, D, etc. And then I can decide which are relevant, need to make some organizational setting, and then ready to go. From the packaging engineer, it is more or less to, of course, prepare the packaging composition or prepare the packaging data along with his or her engineering tasks, and then, if required, check any kind of any data issues in the packaging in RDP when detected, or just keep it as it is, as provided from the source system. The EPR expert then potentially just needs to make some specific settings, like where the fees are negotiated individually per country and per PRO. Then, of course, this needs to be maintained. And the main task and the focus is really on getting the data from the deliveries, from the material movements on a daily basis, for example, and then watch and see what is happening, where SAP Responsible Design and Production detects some inconsistencies in data coming maybe from ERP and PLM. Then the EPR expert is empowered to take action and trigger these fixes or these inconsistencies to get resolved. And ultimately, besides monitoring the data, providing analytical insights where required, of course, at a certain point in time, create the productive EPR declaration and hand it over to the PRO. So this is the entire user journey. And now I'm going to give you a quick view how this looks in our current beta version of SAP Responsible Design and Production. So I'm logged in, holding all roles. So I'm now the EPR admin, as we call it, in one person, as well as the packaging engineer, as well as the EPR expert. So with what you see here right now, we have a data import, which is used during the beta phase, where customers can import all relevant data through our Excel-based staging area. However, in productive use, the main source or the main means to integrate and to get those data is the system-to-system integration, while importing data via Excel, of course, will be possible, as I said already, for introducing and uploading data from non-integrated systems or for like suppliers. But the very first step, if everything is set up properly, is then to enable the reporting categories. So this is the very first step in our user journey. And here you can see that for our beta release, we just have prepared 3 reporting categories in concurrence with our beta customers. And we are now looking into Canada, we are looking into Germany and Netherlands. And just by activating each of those report categories, I, as a customer, have subscribed to any of any of the reporting category that is provided by SAP. And of course, with our minimal viable product, this list will be extended, and the list will grow over time, as I will tell about when we come to the roadmap. So this is the very first step. Now I have subscribed, onboarded the reporting logic. The next simple step is then to configure the reports. And this is only giving you a quick idea how that looks like. Of course, when we look at report for Germany, there are certain aspects that need to be maintained, and that is true for all reports. So to specify which organizational entity of a company is responsible for submitting the declaration or the report. Is it an entire company code? Is it the sales area? Is it a division? So all of those organizational settings are to be made, as well as some details about the documents that are created in ERP for posting the material movements, be it then outgoing material movements or be it documents covering returns. So with this, reducing the volume of packaging for which any kind of fee is calculated, different periodicity of the reports. Is it an annual, a quarterly, a monthly one to be submitted? What is the PROs I, as a customer, have contracted with? And of course, also then what are the fees that are due per material, a fraction per PRO. And all of that is, of course, coming with a validity period, so that the changes year over year can be reflected, etc. So creating those declarations is one step that needs to be done, if you will, once a year after having subscribed to a report. And this is then the only step which is required in preparing the process or enabling the process from receiving data to creating the EPR declarations, and of course have the basis for all the required analytics. when we look at the incoming data, one thing to mention is that, of course, no matter whether the data come through Excel or come through system-to-system integration, we are going to monitor the quality of data, and we are indicating certain standard issues that may occur and that need to be resolved in order to have all data in its accurate shape, and in order to have 100% accurate calculations handed over to the PROs. So this is monitored on a permanent basis. And of course, our expectation is that the list of issues will be reduced over time, the more customers are aware and have resolved issues in their source systems, be it issues in the ERP system with a certain material data missing or in the packaging defining system. So that is something which will continuously happening, monitoring the quality, consistency, correctness, and completeness of data, or ultimately also detecting potential outliers. So that is then what's happening. And of course, from the packaging information, like I introduced quickly with the slide, ultimately we will have all the packaging compositions that are holding all details as required to pack a product from its primary level to the tertiary material for transport. And for each packaging element, of course, RDP also holds all details, be it some sustainability relevant criteria, but also all the technical criteria that are the basis and are to be considered for creating the EPR declarations. So then, of course, we have the analytical views where we can, for example, compare can compare countries, or if I just want to look into one country, I could also then immediately say, okay, what is then the material grouping as required by the PRO organization, in this case in Netherlands, and then also immediately get the information not only about the volume, but what are the costs, the fees that I may expect from year to date, which I will get on an invoice from the PRO. So multitude of analytical details across multiple dimensions and details, so that a customer can really analyze which product is contributing what volume of packaging material, and with that also what other cost and return coming with that packaging. So that is all then coming derived from the packaging data. And of course, ultimately at some point in time, the reports have to be handed over in the very different forms and formats. So this is then the very last step for creating productive ones. And just let me pull few examples just to quickly show the difference that is handled and where we transform the data from the sending systems, where we unify the data and ultimately create any kind of required reporting format without any further activity required by the customer. So no configuration, no programming required, but just the customer then subscribes to the reporting logic, or the analytics as shown are enabled. And ultimately, in this case, it's for the Netherlands, the structure as required by Afvalsfonds in the Netherlands, the data then prepared. And just one other example, when we look at the German structure, it then has a different view where we do all the calculations according to the requirements by the Duale System Germany. So this completes a quick overview on the capabilities. We are working on refining the capability of the application between today and the planned release of the minimal viable product in November. And so all that is based on a certain standardized data model, which takes delivery data, material movements for trading good, finished goods, and of course and packaging material from ERP and PLM system, transforms it into a standardized packaging composition. And with that, we have the basis for serving any kind of analytics, and of course, having the capability to create any kind of EPR declaration for which the reporting logic is prepared and provided by SAP. The solution architecture simply is that we retrieve the data, of course, out of the box from our S4HANA system, the latest release. But we allow, of course, also the integration with ECC, as I indicated already, and we have SAP Responsible Design Production as a software as a service to which customers can subscribe to simply. And here we have all the applications as presented, the required services to check data quality and to do all the calculation. All data is persisted in what we call unified data model, out of which we are able to serve any kind of reporting requirement, and will continuously expand this. And of course, we also provide APIs to consume the data we have in RDP for customers' own purposes. And the integration, of course, needs to be set up. And so the subscription and then the integration with the ERP and PLM systems through capabilities through your customer's account on the SAP Business Technology Platform. So high level, the overview, the roadmap, quickly. With the MVP, we will cover a certain starting set of EPR declarations and sustainability reports, as well as a certain set of capabilities I just presented. And over time, we will expand not only the functional capabilities, and of course, extend into supporting scenarios and processes in the context of responsible design, but especially on a continuous basis, we'll expand the list of available EPR declarations and tax reports, of course, with a strong focus on and priority on the upcoming plastic taxes, starting with Italy, UK, and Spain. As this is a software as a service, a cloud solution, we will continuously deploy innovations, including the declaration, reporting, and functional capabilities. So this will then immediately start after the release of MVP. And this completes my walk through the solution. So it's a software as a service. All the declarations and reports come out of the box, if you will, and there will be not more required by the customer than to activate the declaration, do the company-specific configuration through the applications of RDP, and of course, set up the integration, the technical integration where required. So out of the box with S4 2021, CDI-based cloud data integration, so pull interfaces, or if customer is still running on ECC or current or older SA4 releases, setting up the integration on a project basis, leveraging the accelerators we are going to provide, potentially using then the Excel-based staging area for taking over data from third parties, and ultimately then have also the capabilities to use the data in RDP for own purposes, leveraging and retrieving data through our API. That completes my walk through RDP, and I think now it's time to pause and see if we have any kind of questions.
Thank you very much, Uwe. Hi, Uwe. Thank you very much for your in-depth overview. That was fantastic. From the chat, we do have two questions. So first of all, from Hannes Westphal, could you also delimitate the features of SAP RDP and SAP REA? Will there be tools available to transfer data from REA to RDP?
So SAP Responsible Design and Production, of course, goes beyond a pure reporting and creating declarations. So the support of the transparency on sustainability, the analytical capabilities, this out-of-the-box functionality, and ultimately then being the first step into the direction of SAP Responsible Design is the goal and ambition of SAP Responsible Design and Production. Of course, as you have seen, it covers with creating the EPR declarations capabilities that are today also available in our recycling administration add-on in ERP. So this is then something where that solution will cover this as a part of its capabilities. So ultimately that customers, of course, can and will do all packaging related, EPR related activities through RDP. So that, in the transition also from to this solution, they can, if you will, retire any activity they are currently doing with REA, while of course RDP, SAP Responsible Design and Production, is not considered a successor of REA. So it's really two different things, while SAP Responsible Design and Production also covers capabilities that are today covered by REA.
Thank you very much for the explanation. And a further question from Balash, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Is the SAP Recycling Administration solution in S4, or is it a new product? If it is a new product, which one would that be?
So the recycling administration is a capability in ECC that was developed in the late 90s. So that is an add-on to ECC that has nothing and is not related to SAP Responsible Design and Production, besides the fact that REA creates EPR declarations as well as RDP will come with. Not sure whether this answers the question, if I got it correctly, but REA is a thing, it's on maintenance mode, there is no further development. And again, it's an add-on to ECC, while SAP Responsible Design and Production is a complete new product generation, a cloud-based solution, extending the capabilities of S4HANA, and of course ECC for those customers who are still on ECC.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Uwe. So, are there any further questions for Uwe? Currently, we have no further open questions. So I think if that's the case, then Uwe, I can say a massive thank you for your presentation today. It was very enjoyable. Yes, and then we can proceed with the next part of the circular economy session.
Okay, then thanks a lot, everyone, and enjoy the workshop, and have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Uwe. Take care. Thank you. So now moving on to the next update, we have waste management, and we have Wolfgang Bock joining us for an update there. Wolfgang, if you're there, could you please share your screen and your slides?
Yes, I hope we are good enough now. Sorry for that. Good. Okay. Yes. So we are starting now with waste management, because at some point in time, even in the circular economy process, something is a waste, is a waste, is a waste. So, and you need to get rid of it in a compliant manner. And that's the solution I'm representing now. So therefore, let's go now. We have as always, and now I have to switch here, a disclaimer for whatever reason. Now the slides are not moving. Also nice experience. Oh, God. This is really strange here. I haven't had this before. So, now the disclaimer is coming up. Perfect. So, yes, we are a solution that is embedded in the entire new setup of the sustainability management. We have an established connection to our, let's call it, sister application, which is the product compliance one on the left-hand side, where we are sharing chemical information. But we are also now looking into new integration scenarios with our colleagues now. So for example, with product footprint management, where we are sharing environment management data, so specifically emission data. For sure, with the new sustainability control tower, we have a lot of KPIs to be shared. And as we've learned now with the responsible design and production, there's also at some point in time then the need to take care of the waste. So this kind of waste which you can't recycle, there's no way out to manage that, and we taking care here that this is managed in a compliant way. Now again, it stops the. So, okay, the EHS solution is a portfolio of multiple aspects in the area of environment, health, and safety. And as you can see here, the area which is marked in green here, environment management, is taking care of multiple aspects in this context. So for example, the permit management, regulatory compliance, this is something which you need to have if you run a plant, so to keep the license to operate. So stormwater protection, for example, something very essential, as we've learned here in Germany a few weeks ago. But we also have to deal with the so-called three main environmental compartments, which is the emission into air, emission into water, and the waste management. And this is the part we will talk about now. And similarly to the colleagues from RDP, I'm showing here a slide which shows at least some of the aspects in the context of waste management, because there are two aspects. So one is, okay, regarding the disposal as such, these are the green marked regulations, but there's also the need for reporting. So on top of the, let's say, compliant disposal of a waste, you have to take care about reporting, specifically in the context of all the other two parts of the emissions. And going ahead now, what we envision, as you might know, that we have already a waste management solution since years in ECC. So we've started there in the year 2000, and we more or less stopped the development 10 years ago. We are now envisioning a new solution as part of environment management in S4HANA, so on the new technology platform, the new basis, the new usage of data, which we can share here also for the reporting. But nevertheless, the user story, the process as such, stays the same, meaning you have to first of all identify the waste, then you have to manage this waste as soon as you have that in your plant on site. So there are also processes that we need to support. Then the planning of the disposal needs to take place. If you have then someone found that can take the waste in a compliant manner, then you have to transport it. There are also regulations that needs to manage that. Going then to the disposal to specific facilities, depending on the type of waste, and finally you also have to report on that. So that's the simple story. So 6 steps for an end-to-end scenario from user perspective, and here we are mainly dealing with the environment manager, but also the operations manager and the colleagues that are working on site, so the frontline workers in the storage location, for example, that has to deal with the waste on site. Going from there, you can also create more a process view, and this is represented then on this slide. Again, these 6 steps that we have broken down into individual aspects, like for example for the waste identification, where you first of all have to characterize the waste, because this is also in a lot of countries regulated how to describe the waste. Then you have to define which business partners needs to be taken into place to work with, to define the waste streams and the disposal channels. You have to deal with permits. So specifically, if we are talking about hazardous waste, there are also special regulations, specific permits applying to that. So where you are allowed, for example, just to dispose a specific amount of waste. So thinking again on hazardous waste. And if you are above this limit, then you have to ask again for a permit to get rid of the stuff. Then, as said, managing the waste on site. There are also several aspects that needs to be taken into account, specifically in the context if you have to store it for a longer time period. There are also limits which are allowed to store the waste on site. You have to get rid of it in a certain time frame. Then the shipment, which contains, or the planning of the shipment, which contains then a lot of other regulations which you have to take into account, also from quotation perspective, and the integration to the purchase order process, because at the end of the day, you need to pay for that. So therefore, it needs to also be managed from the logistic perspective. Coming to the transportation, also a critical process, as already mentioned, because here you have also integration in dangerous goods, if necessary, if the waste as such is also hazardous and falls under the dangerous goods regulation. Coming to the disposal, also here you have a logistic process, so meaning the invoicing and the payback and cost allocation, but also more the compliance related process, that you have a confirmation that this specific waste has also reached this disposer, which is allowed to dispose this waste, and all the communication back and forth. And finally, then the reporting based on all the activities that has been done in the 5 steps before, so that you are here able to report this in the corresponding reports to the authorities. Finally, you have then a breakdown to the apps, so meaning really the technical view, how to manage these different processes. You see again these 6 chapters or 6 steps that we have in mind here. And just to go one step further, so what we have done and will be available until end of this year are those parts that are, it's a kind of yellow that we've used here as a color code. So what you can see directly from the beginning, so we've covered all aspects for the waste identification, because this is something absolutely essential. You have to manage all this information before you can do any further step here, as there are essential information that needs to be covered first and needs to be managed in a compliant way. As you've seen on the process, so if you have generated the waste, normally you store it at least for a certain time frame on site, so meaning in your plant, in your organization. So it's absolutely crucial that we have this process at least partially supported here. And therefore, we also concentrated in the first round on this. And then you need to get rid of this. And therefore, the transportation is another essential process that we support here, or will support until end of the year, to have at least a minimum or a lean process supported, meaning, okay, the identification of the waste with all the compliant information you need to manage. You can store it in a limited way in your organization, in your company, on your storage location, and going from there then to the transportation to bring it to the disposer who can manage then the waste. And this is a very lean process. It would not support, let's say, the requirements from process industry, where a lot of regulations, a lot of different steps needs to be supported as well to be in a compliant way here. But there are also regulate or regions where these regulations are not that harsh, so that you can manage it with this lean process. And depending on the waste and the classification of waste, let's say these complicated processes are not really necessary, because the waste as such is not hazardous and therefore doesn't need all this detailed information. So also for this scenario, we can use this solution already. Nevertheless, as you can see, there are still processes missing, and the goal is that we are really supporting this functionality then in the upcoming years to get this done, so that also customers from process industry, for example, that have to deal with hazardous waste, have the solution in place that they need to have for their compliant management of waste. I will show now a few screenshots out of the system so that you see, okay, it's all real. So it's not a fake. It's already built on S4HANA and will be delivered here, for example, with the upcoming on-premise release, but also on the subsequent cloud releases. And first of all, as said, we need to identify, we need to describe the waste. And as we are using the waste similarly than a material, or better said, it's in a kind of extension of the material, we will need to record the corresponding data to describe this waste. And here we are using the chemical compliance info object, so the CCI object. I think we will hear also in Ralph's presentation perhaps about that, that this is a basic functionality that we are also sharing together with the product compliance colleagues. So therefore, this is something where we have a direct integration with the product compliance solution by adding this waste-specific information, which we need then for the further processing, where we are using the material or product, to use the new name, then as the essential logistical process. Going ahead from there, it's also necessary that the transporters of the waste, but also the disposers are described in the right way. Often you even need to use a specific coding, so a specific naming that this disposer, for example, has, that it's directly identifiable by the authorities that you are doing the right thing here. So these are master data which needs to be recorded. It's an extension of the business partner. So here we are also following the same concept. So we're using a logistical process and then adding the waste-specific part to it. And you see then also here always the list view and then the so-called object page. So these two frame sets in Fiori to characterize these data. Another aspect that needs to be described are the so-called waste streams and disposal channels, because specifically for hazardous waste there's often only one way how you can get rid of this waste. So meaning, okay, if you have a specific kind of waste, for example, with a lot of volatile organic compounds, there might be just 1, 2, or 3 companies which can take over this waste in a compliant way. And this is then described as a disposal channel. So the way from your company to the disposal facility, and this needs also being recognizable by the authorities. So also these are master data that we need to deal with. And then the overarching process, so the permit describes the way and also the amount of waste that you can deal with. So meaning, okay, you have, for example, let's take again this volatile waste with volatile organic compounds. You might have a permit that you just can distribute in the year 2021, 50 tons of this specific waste. You get an approval by the authorities, and you can also, or you need to report this also in the system. And this is the information you have to create also and to have to deal with. So which means also if you are over this limit, then you have to ask for a new permit, because you are just allowed, in the case I've given, or the example I've given, to distribute 50 tons of this specific waste with volatile organic compounds. And this is the way we are using here the system. We are using this permit also in other contexts, so in the entire environment management solution, because this is some master data, some master process that we are using in any kind of environment limits, so that we have here the same look and feel and the same mechanics when we are dealing here with permits in the context of waste management. And as said, finally, if you want to get rid of the waste, so meaning, okay, someone takes it and needs to transport it, then we also have here documents that needs to be created. It's also a specific app that we are using here, and we will go here further with the integration then to dangerous goods, because often this waste is also hazardous or dangerous in the context of the dangerous goods regulation. So which means, if possible, meaning if the customer has product compliance dangerous goods in place, we also want to use this functionality. Nevertheless, there might be also cases where customers are not using this solution, so that we at least are able to have a minimum set of data available that the customer can create their own transport documents. But it's not what we envision, because we want to have the integration with product compliance to use here the variety of information they can provide to us. But as said, it's an essential process. You can't ship or transport the waste if it's hazardous without this information, because this is a legal requirement. What we are also using here, and that's perhaps not new to others, but new to EHS, we are making use of this new web assistance software here specifically for the guided tour, because often if you're thinking about the waste management and the workers on site, so in the storage location, so when they get a container of specific waste in there, they are not that familiar with the solution, because they have to deal with a lot of other stuff as part of their work. So therefore, I think it's quite essential that these kind of guided tours are provided, that the occasional user knows what to do, because we are talking here about the compliance process, which means, okay, you have to do things right. And if you're not used to that, to have at least a maximum of support here, that you can manage this in a compliant way. And as said, might not be new to other applications, but here we have made our first experience with the web assistance, and here specifically the guided tour. So therefore, I think it's something that is worth to mention, specifically in comparison to the old solutions or the ECC-based solution, where it was very technically built, so that occasional users are often lost when they have managed the solution. So here we are much better in the new S4HANA environment. And with that, I'm already coming to the end. I would like to give you 3 takeaways. So one is, we've started the development, so we are not at the end in the existing portfolio of EHS as part of S4HANA on-premise and cloud. We are running under the cloud first paradigm, so which means we deliver on a quarterly basis new functionality, and this will be gathered then at a certain point in time also in the on-premise release, so that on-premise customers will get also the same functionality at a certain point in time. So these are, let's say, the technical boundary conditions we are facing, because we've decided this functionality with this integration into logistical processes, but also at a later point in time into the financial processes, needs to be in part of S4HANA. As said, we intend to support, and let's call it for the time being, a lean waste management process. So meaning, okay, all the characterization of the waste is possible. You can manage it on site, and you can create transportation documents so that this process is at least supported. But as said, we are acting here in the cloud, so that new functionality will come stepwise, so that we hopefully have then a solution that also fits the requirements from process industry as soon as possible. And as we are dealing in the context of sustainability, waste management is more or less relevant for all industries, not only for those that needs to manage waste in a compliant way. So specifically if they have to deal with hazardous waste, like in the process industry. But if you're looking on this from a broader perspective, then you might already know that, for example, for the greenhouse gas company carbon footprint and also for the product carbon footprint, there is, for example, in the scope 3, the category 5, where you also have to take a look on the waste that you are disposing. So therefore here we have a linkage with the waste management solution. And you might have heard that there's now a new regulation coming up, the so-called Lieferketten-Sorgfaltspflichtengesetz. You can somehow translate it into supply chain due diligence law. It's currently just a German law, but the European Union is already thinking about to bring this into the EU, so that all companies in the EU needs to deal with that. And there are specific aspects also of waste here, for example, in context of waste with mercury content, because this is very critical waste. And in this context, we also have then questions in regard to the waste and the amount of waste that is dealt with. So which means not only for waste specific aspects, so in the context of, okay, I have some waste, I need to get rid of this in a compliant way. You have to look on the waste management functionality as such, but also in the context of greenhouse gas emissions and this new supply chain due diligence law. And with that, I'm at the end of the session. And I hope that there are some questions, which I'm happy to answer.
Thank you very much, Wolfgang, for this very in-depth update for a very important theme, certainly. So far, actually, we don't have any questions in the chat. So yeah, just always a sign of a good presentation. All questions answered. Okay. But let's leave the floor open just for another minute or so. If anyone has any questions, by all means, please contribute them. I think Wolfgang is very keen to answer. So any questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. I think you've explained it well then, in which case. Okay. Always a good sign.
Even better. And in time, which is not often the case, but if I'm talking, so. Oh, I see there's something coming up.
It's just a smiley face. So I think that's an agreement.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I just see the pop-up. Okay.
It was clear. There you go. All confirmed.
Okay.
Excellent. Brilliant. Well, look, thank you very, very much, Wolfgang, for the presentation. If there are any questions which come to mind thereafter, you can contact Wolfgang directly, I'd imagine. That's not a problem. And yeah, like I said, the recording will be posted on the landing page in the near future as well. So Wolfgang, thank you very much for your time. And now we'd like to move on to our next presentation. We have Ralph with us, Ralph Koenig, who is going to give us an update from product compliance. Ralph, welcome to the call.
Thanks. All right. Yeah, welcome to the update of SAP S4HANA Cloud for Product Compliance. As usual, I will give a brief introduction, what I will talk about. Then I have collected the highlights of the let's say, last cloud release and the upcoming cloud release. And eventually, hopefully, we have time for questions and answers. So product compliance itself, similar to EHS, has a long history, right? So it all started almost 25 years ago, and functionality was added over time. And of course, eventually this functionality also ended up in our new prime product, S4HANA and S4HANA Cloud. And when that happened, basically, we were starting an assessment, what are we doing with this new platform, right? And a little earlier, it was already clear that we more strictly are separating EHS topics from product compliance topics. That's why we had also different sessions today. And so product compliance is focusing more on the product-related compliance aspect, whereas EHS, as Wolfgang has explained, is more dealing with worker safety, environment management, and now also with waste management. All right, so what is product compliance all about? In general, we have three main capabilities. The first one is product marketability and chemical compliance. So this is all about ensuring that that the customers can produce and sell compliant products. So meaning that the products are really fulfilling all the regulatory requirements, but maybe also market requirements, customer requirements for the market they are intended to be sold. And of course, this is to be done to protect the brand of the customer, to secure revenue, and to reduce time to market. Second main capability is dangerous goods management. This is about compliant transport, specifically for products, of course, that are hazardous itself or contain hazardous components. And similar to what Wolfgang just explained, if you have these kind of products, you have certain, let's say, regulations dealing with waste in Wolfgang's case, and you have certain regulations dealing with these products or applying to these products when you want to transport them. In this case, these are the dangerous goods transport regulations. And the value proposition here, of course, is we help our customers to proper classify their products, have the correct information in place when it's time for delivery to really improve on the on-time delivery of the goods and to avoid any disruption. And the last capability is about safety data sheet and label management. So if you have hazardous products or products with hazardous ingredients, of course, you should tell your customers about this and should tell your customers what to do to mitigate these hazards or how to use the product in a proper way. And means to do this, at least in the chemical industry, are safety data sheets, of course, and in general, the, let's say, most important information should also be stated on the label of the product. And that's why we have this functionality here to support customers to create and generate these artifacts, in the end to, of course, protect the workers, the people in general, and the environment to avoid any potential hazard or spill or problem with the products. All right. As I said, when S4HANA arrived, we did an assessment, what can we do with the new platform? And we did an assessment in parallel, what are the requirements of the future, most likely, of our customers, and how can we address these? And the end result was, okay, let's use S4HANA, the new technology we have at hand, to address or to evolve the software in a way that it is able to address all the upcoming requirements. And if you have a look at the market, I mean, regulations are popping up all over the place. They get updates more frequently. They get more complex, like the REACH regulations, and they have to be dealt with in even more markets. So that brought us to the conclusion: hey, we need to really invest in, let's say, automation, streamlining, simplification of the solution in a way that our customers can really handle these requirements. So taking away complexity from them, letting the system do more for them, but in the end, the expert, of course, needs to bring in the knowledge and the decisions where the software cannot do this automatically. So that's what we aim for in our strategy, and that's what we are doing since a couple of years. And the result of that strategy is that we have, let's say, classic and new functionality in on-premise. In the cloud, you will only see the results of this strategy, the new functionality, and that's what I want to show you now, where we are. So the cloud version of product compliance is available since 2018, and since then we have delivered lots of innovations, and here are the overview of the recent ones. As usual, we update our regulatory content. I mean, if you talk about compliance against what? To what, right? You need digital versions of the regulations in order to make an assessment, am I compliant or not? And that's what we call regulatory content. And it is built into the software already, so you don't need to load it or download it, upload it. No hassle here. The system already comes preloaded with content. So we have more than 300,000 listed substances. We have regulation data in the system. It is modeled in compliance requirements. We have that. We have heard that term before in Wolfgang's presentation. So think about a compliance requirement as the digital version of a regulation or specific requirement from a regulation. And so in marketability, right now we have 137 already. Most of them are actually substance list check patterns, so inventory checks, blacklist checks, all these kinds of stuff. In safety data sheet management, we have 136 compliance requirements representing the countries that require a safety data sheet for hazardous products or for certain products. So, and this right now is really safety data sheet management. The authoring will come later. That is a roadmap topic. And in dangerous goods, we have 14 of the 15 major DG regulations. The only one that is missing is the Chinese one, the Chinese road transport regulation. It's undergoing a complete reauthoring or re-editing, but it's not released yet. So we will bring it into our system when the new version is available. Until then, we have let's say a means to deal with it as well. So you can deal with Chinese classifications. We have a text-based pattern which allows you to perform the classification even without having the content in digital form. And the system comes preloaded with almost 3,000 phrases, so standardized texts, including the translations in all the, let's say, in all the languages where you need to generate documents for. All right. With 2108 in product marketability or in general, we see a new integration into our purchasing process, and that is true for marketability and dangerous goods. So as you can see here on the screenshots, we have dedicated status fields now in the purchase order, and which indicates whether the purchase order itself or the processing of it would be compliant from a product marketability point of view or from the dangerous goods point of view. And it also checks if this supplier and raw material combination is allowed from the compliance department. So the compliance department has functionality to block certain, we call that supplier materials, in case this material is not fulfilling all the necessary requirements. So if the compliance engineer has blocked this material, then the purchase order will be blocked as well, as you can see here in the screenshot. So this is basically following the compliance first approach, giving your compliance engineer hopefully full control about the purchasing process. We have a similar on the outbound process for a long time now. So sales orders and delivery can be blocked in a similar way based on the decision of the compliance engineer. In dangerous goods management, we also continue our integration into the outbound process with 2108. We see first integration into the transportation management. So we already have integration into sales order processing and delivery processing. And now we also have integration into the transportation planning, if you want. And there are two objects involved here. The freight unit is actually the transport demand, and the freight order representing the actual transport orders. And in both objects, the colleagues have implemented dangerous goods checks, and they can differ from the result in the delivery, actually, because on the delivery node, you only know basically source country and destination country. But in transportation management, we have much more detailed information. Of course, we have the different legs. We know how we want to transport the goods, so by road, by rail, by a ship, and that will all go into the check, and then the check can deliver much more detailed results, and so it can differ from the delivery results. And as you see here on the screenshots, we have a dedicated dangerous goods status now in both objects, and if dangerous goods says everything's good for this product and this mode of transport, then the processing can continue. But if the DG expert has said, no, this product and this mode of transport is not allowed, then the processing will be blocked, and the planning needs to restart. And with 2108, we finally are complementing our safety data sheet shipment functionality. We had in the system for a couple of releases now the automated safety data sheet shipment based on the delivery processing. We had the subsequent shipment based on changes on the document. And now we have also the manual shipment of safety data sheets, so that in case you want to send a safety data sheet to a business partner, to a customer, not with a product or with a delivery, but just separately, you can do so. And as you can see here, we have integrated this in our compliance information app, where you can easily see which safety data sheets are available, and based on that, you can ship it to your business partner. All right, so that were the major highlights in 2108. But of course, development continues. So what will come up in the next cloud release, 2111, I have a preview compiled for you guys. So in the compliance data foundation, basically what we will see, of course, is the regulatory content update. So we will actually increase our number of listed substances and phrases significantly. And of course, we will update the compliance requirements if necessary. More details will be shown when the release is finalized, and you can check this back in the Roadmap Explorer. In addition, we have extended our support for the Brexit and the Northern Ireland Protocol. So we have reworked the affected compliance requirements to really separate, let's say, Great Britain from Northern Ireland. So Great Britain representing England, Wales, and Scotland, and Northern Ireland more or less is kind of handled itself or in together with the European Union, because as you know, the Northern Ireland Protocol aims to, let's say, to not create a border again between Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. So Northern Ireland is really more to be treated as part of the European Union from a regulatory point of view. And so we need to clearly separate Great Britain from Northern Ireland. And that's what we did. And so partners should, or the customers should be ready now to really make use of this. In the area of product marketability, we have enhancements, how we, let's say, how the customer can deal with occupational exposure limits. We know from EHS that this is important, of course, for all the products that are on site. And but this information is also needed for the products that I sell. And so here I can, let's say, configure a little bit which occupational exposure limits I want to really, let's say, take into account for my products I manufacture or sell. So we have added some configuration options here to extend or to, let's say, hide certain components. And then in addition, we have developed an interface for substance volume tracking data. So you might know that we have started to release first new substance volume tracking functionality. And now with this interface, external systems are able to read that data out of S4HANA Cloud and feed it, for example, into a business warehouse or into whatever logic you want to have a, let's say, additional maybe tracking or additional manipulation of the data. In the area of dangerous goods management, we have developed the first, let's say, mass editing functionality. We learned from our customers that, let's say, mass changes are important steps in their daily work. And we have started to address this here. So the first application that can deal with many changes is the mass reclassification in case of a regulation change. So if a new DG compliance requirement version is activated in the system, this application allows the DG expert to get an overview, a quick overview, okay, which products are changing or need different classification and which ones are basically the same. And then for all the same ones, he can perform a release, and then he can focus on the ones that have created, let's say, a different result based on the previous version. And so he can focus on the products that need attention. In addition, we will continue our integration journey together with the transportation management colleagues. So we look to complement or complete our document output here. So some DG regulations require specific documents. And so we start with the European Road Transport, ADR. And so we will see the first specific document here in 2111 for that regulation. And we will extend functionality to also not only provide this DG data documents, but also to be able to electronically distribute this to carriers. And for this, the DG data is integrated into the SOAP service from TM for that purpose. And finally, on the safety data sheet management, and we will see a new Fiori app to manage the GHS classification. So as you know, we will not stop at managing safety data sheets. Our goal is to really be able also to create safety data sheets within product compliance. Again, for this, of course, we need the data buckets. And so an important task is to really extend the data model here. And the GHS classification is just another new data bucket. And we provide the Fiori app for this now. In addition, we have support for business rule framework rules to influence how the safety data sheet shipment behaves and how the cover sheets are selected. So this should be more or less similar now to the existing classic functionality. All right, the journey is not over. As we have, or as it was already mentioned by Wolfgang, the Supply Chain Transparency Act, of course, is now a hot topic. And with product compliance, of course, we can also help here to address questions around supply chain transparency. And because, as you have seen, I mean, we are able to store compliance information for supplier materials, so for raw materials you get from a supplier. And so with that, we can even deliver a detailed analysis how this supplier is dealing with certain, let's say, social aspects for his products. And with that, you can not only assess the supplier in total, but you can basically assess the supplier for each material or product he is supplying to you. And so you can add, with product compliance, you can add, let's say, one level of detail to your overarching supply chain transparency due diligence. So we will continue to expand this, and we hope to have some more standard functionality ready by the end of next year. So stay tuned for that. And with that, are there any questions?
Thank you very much, Ralph. So far, once again, we have no questions in the Q&A, but yeah, let's leave it a minute or so just to see if any further questions come in. It was very interesting to hear. I mean, I'm Scottish, so it was very interesting to hear all of the different requirements which are required from a software perspective to cater for Brexit.
Yes, yeah. It is. It is actually complicated, you know, because the different chemical regulations now apply to Northern Ireland in most pieces, but no longer to the Great Britain. And but I mean, Northern Ireland is not a country in the system, you know, that it makes it a little complicated for everybody to deal with that, you know.
Yeah. Oh no, I can imagine, definitely. And I can imagine there's potentially quite a lot of change still on the horizon. I think it's somewhere where you're obviously being kept on your toes.
Absolutely. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Just be reminded, if you need more information or more detailed information, specifically for 2111, as I said, please feel free to check back on our roadmap viewer, roadmap explorer. You will find all the details I have presented here and more to come. So the roadmap explorer is updated on a regular basis. And of course, all the details can also be found on our help portal for S4HANA and S4HANA Cloud, just in case you need to explain some of the functionality to your customers or our customers in general.
And there was a link to that in the presentation as well, I think, Ralph. Am I correct?
There was a, well, there's a link, and as you see here, the roadmap viewer is linked here. So, yeah.
Perfect. So yeah, we'll be publishing the slides on the landing page in the very near future alongside the recording as well. So everyone should be able to access it from there. So no further questions in the Q&A. So Ralph, thank you very much from our side for your presentation. This brings to an end the circular economy side of the sustainability presentation. The sustainability management session is still continuing, and actually I'll be rejoining that myself. For anyone who wishes to also jump back to the alternative session, you will find a link to the Zoom call in the chat to rejoin there. So that's everything from this side. A massive thank you to Ralph and Wolfgang who are still in the call, and to Stephen and Uwe who have had to leave. And thank you to all of our participants for joining. Have a great day.